13 spine-chilling December horror stories. Discover the sinister footprints that aren't ours. The Johnsons were buzzing with holiday cheer, a classic family gearing up for a cozy Christmas in their little Idaho house. Claire, a spirited schoolteacher, festooned their living room with twinkling lights and festive ornaments, pouring her heart into the spirit of the season. But Mark, her husband, the ever-cautious accountant, felt a creeping dread that cast a shadow over their preparations. It started innocently enough, the first snowfall coating the neighborhood with a soft white blanket. The kids laughed and played, but as Mark opened the door, inhaling the crisp air, he stumbled upon something unnatural: large, heavy footprints leading directly to their front door. They were distinctly human. At first, Mark chalked it up to some neighborhood prank. The Johnsons were well known on their street, friendly and warm. Surely it was just those troublemakers from down the block. But as days passed, those chilling footprints reappeared each morning, perfectly preserved, as if someone was monitoring their home. His heart raced as the reality dawned upon him. The comfort of their cozy home was interrupted by an invisible specter lurking in the shadows. Then came the flickering lights. They blinked on and off sporadically, but the fuse box revealed no faults. The creaking wood of the floors echoed through the house at night, setting every nerve on edge. Whispers floated through the air, low and unintelligible, echoing in the hollow dark, giving Mark a sense of undeniable paranoia. Something wasn't right. Feeling isolated and desperate, Mark reached out to the local police, only to be met with blank stares and chuckles, their laughter mocking his concerns. "Just the holidays getting to you," they said, shushing him in a light-hearted tone that only deepened his chill. Even neighbors who baked cookies and sang carols seemed disturbingly uninterested when he hinted at the footprints. Their smiles held secrets he couldn't decipher. As Christmas Eve loomed, the warm glow of lights around the Johnson home felt like a false shield. Mark's instincts screamed that someone was watching them. One night, as he peered out the window, heart pounding, he spotted a shadow flitting across the yard just outside his line of sight. Panic consumed him. Desperate to protect his family, he resolved to stake it out, armed with only a flashlight and shaky resolve. The wind howled like a beast, and the cold seeped into his bones as he stood outside, waiting. Seconds felt like hours. When he finally stepped out into the biting chill, his heart raced with terror. Was it just the wind, or was something or someone out there? Each rustle made him jump. Then, he saw the figures. The footprints were back, leading into the darkness. And then, they began to shift. A figure emerged from the shadows, a coat pulled tight around the body, the face obscured. Mark's breath hitched. This was no mere prankster. This was someone close, someone who wore their community like a second skin, silently haunting their holiday cheer. The air thickened with dread as Mark felt reality start to twist around him, screaming with terror about the hidden truths that might unravel this suburban facade. Would he confront the sorrows of a sinister presence before Christmas morning dawned, or had he already lost his family to the ghost of their festive traditions? Mark's heart thudded relentlessly in his chest, each beat amplified by the cold silence wrapping around him. He felt as if the very shadows were alive, creeping closer, brushing against his skin like the icy breath of a ghost. The figure in the coat stood motionless, a dark silhouette against the glimmering lights of his home, and Mark's instinct screamed at him to retreat. But the dread anchoring him in place was more powerful than the fear chaining him to the porch. "Who are you?" he croaked, his voice barely slicing through the night's stillness. The figure shifted, a slow, deliberate movement that seemed to mock his question. The face remained hidden. The weight of its gaze pressed down on him, making him feel simultaneously exposed and vulnerable, as if he were a lone deer caught in the sights of a hunter. The shadows deepened, swallowing the edges of the porch light, and with an almost supernatural grace, the figure took a step forward. Mark's breath caught again, a whimper escaping his lips as he turned, fleeing back into the safety of his home. He slammed the door behind him, the sound ricocheting in the quiet house, pulling Claire from the kitchen where she had been humming a Christmas tune, blissfully unaware of the terror outside. "Mark? What's wrong?" she asked, concern etching her brows as she approached him, holding a spatula like a shield. "Claire, we need to lock the doors. Now." He fumbled with the locks, his hands trembling as memories of the chilling footprints flooded his mind. She watched him, confusion written all over her face. "What do you mean? It's Christmas Eve. Hasn't the spirit of the season invaded your heart?" She chided gently, thinking he was overreacting, swept away by a haze of holiday anxiety. "Please, just trust me." Mark's voice was frantic. Outside, the howling wind intensified, slamming against their house. The lights flickered again, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Claire's smile faded as she studied him. This was a man unraveling, a husband fighting demons she couldn't see. With every lock clicked into place, Mark felt a brief surge of confidence, a fragile armor against the dreadful chill he felt creeping back into his bones. "Can you help me with the kids?" he urged, urgency cracking his voice. She nodded tightly, moving towards the stairs. The children were still awake, eyes wide with excitement, waiting for Santa's arrival. They nestled close together, reading tales of joy while outside, the air grew thick with discomfort, as if the world had paused. Mark's heart raced as he scanned the shadows pooling in their living room corners. He couldn't shake the feeling that something had slipped inside their lives, blending seamlessly with the happy memories they cherished. As Claire tucked the kids into bed, a sound echoed from outside, a soft knock, rhythmic and deliberate, rapping against the door like a harbinger of doom. Mark felt the color drain from his face. Claire caught his eye, her body tense and watching the door now as if it might morph into a gaping void. "Who's out there?" she whispered, a slight tremor in her voice. He edged toward the window, squinting through the dim light. What he saw made his blood run cold. The footprints, each one distinct and fresh in the snow, traced through their yard, leading towards the door, but this time, they bore the unmistakable mark of familiarity. Claire's voice broke through the fog of horror. "What if it's someone we know?" Panic surged. Was it possible? Could it be someone hidden within their tight-knit community, wearing a pleasant mask during the day, now revealing a sinister side under the cover of night? Suddenly, the warmth of their Christmas spirit felt like a flimsy curtain against the dark truths creeping in. As the knocking grew louder, Mark realized that ignoring this nightmare could mean losing everything. Whatever or whoever was out there would soon be inside. But was he brave enough to find out? "Should we open the door?" Claire murmured, her hand brushing against his. Mark hesitated, the question hanging in the air thick with dread. Perhaps this night, filled with twinkling lights and holiday cheer, would twist into something far more sinister than he ever thought possible. Would this Christmas reveal a truth that could obliterate their perfect facade? The pressure mounted, and with a pounding heart he reached for the doorknob, the sound of footsteps receding into the shadows. The doorknob felt icy in Mark's grip, each twist sending shocks through his body. He could hear the wind shriek as if trying to warn him, urging him to reconsider. Claire stood beside him, her breath quick and shallow, a mirror of his mounting dread. Her eyes, usually bright with merriment, were darkened by concern. "Mark," she whispered, pulling back slightly. "What if it's not safe?" His mind raced. "We can't just ignore it. Someone's out there." The pounding on the door had stopped. Now silence hung heavily, thick and oppressive. It felt like a blanket smothering him, stealing the air. Outside, the shadows shifted. At the edges of the porch light, flickers danced like phantom flames, creating grotesque shapes that twisted and morphed. Mark's heart pounded, a relentless reminder of the fear constricting his chest. "Should we call the police?" Claire suggested. She reached for her phone, but Mark stopped her. "The lines might be down. We don't know, what if they cut them?" Panic dripped from his tone, and Claire's eyes widened in realization. She had never seen him like this, so close to the edge. A sudden crash erupted, shaking the walls of their home. Mark startled, glancing at Claire. "It's the windows. They're trying to break in." "Mark! Stay calm," she pleaded desperately, her voice trembling. They needed to think together. He inched towards the door again, urgency clawing at him. He needed answers, but part of him craved the solace of closing his eyes and pretending nothing was happening. Do you feel that? He grunted, glancing back at her. The temperature was dropping rapidly, as though winter's breath had entered through the tiniest crevice. Claire nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line. It's so cold the door shuddered abruptly under the weight of something regaining its fierce composure. Mark felt a surge of primal fear. This wasn't just a thrill-seeking intruder, there was intent behind this presence. He grasped the doorknob once more, adrenaline kicking in. No, wait! Claire's voice cracked as she stepped forward, desperation threading through her words. Let us think. What if it is someone we know? What if it's a prank? In the stillness that followed, Mark's mind twisted. They had friends, neighbors, people who might want to share Christmas cheer. But the footprints, those were not playful. The memories of the tracks in the snow haunted him, a chilling reminder of vulnerability beneath the guise of their community. Before he could respond, the knocking returned, but this time, it transformed into clawing, relentless slams, echoing like a heartbeat of terror. Mark's breath hitched. Whoever it is, doesn't he want to scare us away? He murmured, realization dawning with a bone-deep chill. Then why come at all? Claire's voice was barely a whisper, water sliding over stone. He turned back to the door. I have to see. With a deep breath, he twisted the knob and flung the door open. The cold air surged in, carrying the scent of earthy decay, tangy and metallic. But the porch was empty. The wind howled through the night, mocking him, swirling leaves and darkness. Only the echo of their earlier panic remained. He felt his heart drop. Was this a game? Had he imagined the knocking? Suddenly the children's laughter broke the tense quiet, oblivious to the terror that had just gripped the moment. Mark turned, wanting desperately to rejoin that warmth, to believe again in the magic of childhood. Claire squeezed his arm, her wide eyes searching his. Did you hear that? She stammered, glancing over her shoulder. Mark's gaze snapped back to the porch. The footprints. They didn't lead away, they seemed to stop right at the door. Then, in the shadows just beyond the porch light, he saw a small handprint in the snow, tiny and innocent, yet stained with something dark. Claire's voice trembled. What if it's not just us? Mark's mind raced as the implications crashed into him like icy waves. He felt the foundations of their world crack beneath him. Who had come for their children? The grip of fear wrapped around his spine as he scanned the darkness. What waited beyond the porch light? With a pounding heart, he stepped out into the void, searching for a phantom that felt all too real, and then the laughter stopped. The sudden silence rang louder than the laughter that had just faded, echoing in Mark's ears like a death knell. He took a step forward, heart racing, barely conscious of Claire's shaking hand gripping his arm. The night stretched around them, unfathomable and heavy, swallowing sound and sanity alike. Mark, Claire breathed. Her voice was barely audible above the wind. We shouldn't be out here. We don't know what's waiting. He felt the trembling in her fingers, the way her body radiated fear. But Mark had to keep moving. He forced himself to look at the handprint in the snow, the small, delicate shape stamped in a patch of darkness beneath the light, as if pulling them in like a moth to a flame. It seemed both innocent and sinister, and the contradiction unnerved him. Stay close, he ordered, stepping cautiously off the porch, boots crunching in the icy snow. Each footprint felt like an invitation to a horror show he didn't want to attend. The moments stretched, dread wrapping tighter around his chest. Claire followed, but her hesitation was palpable. Every step was like treason against the safety of their home, and yet, both sensed they were bound by an inexplicable need to understand what was happening. As they moved further from the porch light, shadows elongated and emerged like fingers grasping at them from the surrounding darkness. The laughter and joyous shouts that had seemed so near now felt miles away, swallowed by the abyss. He turned to Claire, her face illuminated by a soft glow from the porch, revealing wide eyes and skin paler than the snow. What do we do? She whispered, terror pooling in her voice. We should go back. Mark clenched his jaw, fighting against the instinct to flee. What if something happened to them? At that moment, an unsettling noise rippled through the air, the crack of a branch, sharp and clear, followed by a low, guttural sound that surfaced from the depths of the trees. "Did you hear that?" Claire gasped, and he nodded gravely, his heart pounding like a war drum. The guttural noise clawed at his insides, setting off alarm bells in his mind. A primal instinct warned him to turn and run, but dread held him in place. The trees loomed like giants in the moonlight, their branches gnarled and claw-like. Fear coiled around him as he peered into the inky black, straining to see what lurked beyond the reach of the light. "Mark, this isn't right," Claire urged, her voice shaking. He could see her reflection flickering with uncertainty, and for the first time, he saw how truly terrified she was, a mirror of his own heart. But something was pulling at him, whispering to him like a malevolent spirit. Primal instincts wrestled deep within. He turned his gaze back to the house, the warmth flickering just beyond grasp. He opened his mouth to speak, maybe to share his fears or a promise that they would be fine, but no words came. Another noise broke the stillness, a sound like feet dragging through the snow, slow and deliberate. It echoed through the cold air, chilling him to the bone. "Maybe we should go back now," Claire offered weakly, casting fearful glances at the encroaching darkness. Then he saw it, something shifting in the dark. A figure, slight yet foreboding, slipped behind one of the trees. Mark felt bow rise in his throat as the world around him shifted. That laughter, once joyous, now transformed into shrieks of pure terror. The figure disappeared for a moment, leaving only shadows to taunt them. "Claire, we need to go now." But he had said it too late. The shrieks pierced the peaceful night as the figure reemerged, distorted and unnatural. Mark's heart jolted at the sight, completely unprepared for the horror laid bare before them. In that moment, Mark realized the truth: the door they had opened was leading somewhere dark, and they were not alone. "Run!" he screamed, grabbing Claire's hand tight. But it was a race against the darkness, and the shadows were moving faster than they could run. Just beyond the trees, something awaited, an anxious whisper promising to unravel the very fabric of their lives. What had they uncovered? And would they survive the night? The moment they turned, Mark felt the icy wind biting at their backs, urging them forward, but his panic made it hard to focus. The sound that had echoed through the woods now transformed into a cacophony, howls of despair intertwined with whispers that seemed to come from all directions. "Mark! What is that?" Claire's voice wavered, barely a breath above the chaos. She tugged at his arm, pulling him closer, like a child seeking shelter from a storm. "I don't know," he gasped, each breath a visible puff in the frigid air. "Just keep moving." They plunged deeper into the shadows, each crunch of snow beneath their feet sounding like thunder in the vast stillness. Mark could feel the weight of unseen eyes trailing them, watching from the depths of the woods. The twisting trees seemed to shift and sway, their gnarled branches reaching for them, greedy and hungry. "Please," Claire's plea pierced through the madness. "I can't take this." Mark forced his feet forward, desperation pounding in his chest. The house, with its warm glow, felt like a dream, a memory fading into nightmares. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a clearing, a brief respite from the enveloping shadows. The moon cast an eerie light upon the ground, illuminating a grotesque spectacle. In the center, more handprints were stamped into the snow, but these were not delicate like the last. These seemed clawed, jagged edges framing each imprint, as if fingers were digging into the earth, fighting to escape something darker beneath. They were here," Claire stammered, stepping back as if the prints had come alive with malevolence. "They didn't make it." Mark felt his stomach drop, a sickening twist of fear and dread, the realization crashing over him that whatever had chased them was waiting, watching still. "We need to hide," he barked, scanning their surroundings like prey. But Claire stood frozen, her gaze fixed on the tree-line. "Mark, something's coming." Just then, the air shifted, a rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig, closer this time. A figure emerged, a haunting silhouette framed by the moonlight. Mark's heart raced as it lumbered forward, moving with an unnatural grace that sent chills down his spine. "Run!" he shouted again, grabbing her by the wrist. They darted away, back toward the darkness, where they could feel hidden but just as vulnerable. The sound of their frantic footsteps faded, submerged by an unholy chorus of whispers, echoes of those who had succumbed. The path became treacherous, the ground uneven and littered with branches that clawed at their skin as they navigated toward the safety of the house. Yet the whispers grew louder, more insistent, weaving through the icy air like a net designed to snare their souls. Mark's mind raced, thoughts spiraling as he fought to tune out the terror consuming him. Were they chasing him, or were they leading him somewhere? Suddenly, Claire stumbled, falling into the snow with a cry. The breath left Mark's lungs as he turned to pull her up, desperation rooting him to the spot. "We have to go, Claire! Get up!" Her eyes were wide with terror, reflecting the pale light of the moon, and for a split second, he thought he saw something behind her, an inhuman shape, dark and twisted, creeping towards them with deliberate intent. "Mark," she whispered, trembling. "I can't feel my..." The scream that ripped from her throat erupted as the figure lurched forward, blurring into a rush of shadows. He never questioned what he had to do. With a heart clawing for a spark of bravery, he lunged toward her. But in the span of a heartbeat, everything twisted into chaos, and the last light of the moon was snuffed out, plunging them into a darkness deeper than they ever thought possible. What had they awakened? Would they discover the truth, or would they be trapped in the night forever? Mark's heart thundered in the oppressive darkness, a drum of dread that drowned out everything else. He felt Claire's hands slip from his grasp as he stumbled forward, each frantic step a desperate attempt to escape the lurking horror behind them. Shadows loomed large, coiling in the corners of his vision like serpents ready to strike. "Claire!" His voice cracked, swallowed by the night, echoing back to him with mockery. Raw fear gripped him as silence filled the air, a silence heavier than the falling snow. He pivoted, his breath escaping him in uneven gasps, and scrambled back to the last spot he'd seen her. As he turned, a wave of cold washed over him, a presence like an electric charge in the air. The darkness seemed alive, pulsing with some ancient malice, and the shadows danced around him, threatening to consume him whole. "Claire?" He called again, calmer this time, but the quiver of panic betrayed him. He stretched out into the dark, fingertips brushing against the chill, seeking some sign of her presence. But grasping onto air brought no comfort, only the bitter realization that he might be utterly alone. And then he heard it, a soft whimper, barely a sound, but enough to hook him like a line cast into the depths of despair. He followed the sound, weaving through the inky blackness, heart wild. "I'm coming!" he yelled, his voice echoing back to him with stark finality, as if the night were taunting him. Finally, he spotted a pale figure huddled against a tree, snow blanketing her like a shroud. "Claire!" Relief surged through him, electrifying every nerve. He rushed towards her, hardly aware of the sinister eyes lurking among the branches. "Mark," she whispered, her voice trembling. Her face was ghostly white, as if the life had been siphoned out of her. "It's coming, I can feel it." "What are you?" Before he could finish, another howl pierced the air. This one was primal, filled with anger and hunger, an echo of the very darkness they fled. Mark knelt beside her, eyes scanning the tree-line. A flicker of movement caught his eye, drawing his stomach into a knot. "We have to move!" He pushed her. She nodded, an eerie calm settling over her as she slowly got to her feet, but Mark couldn't shake the feeling creeping up his spine. As they began to inch away, the shadows seemed to tighten around them like a noose, and the whispers, the twisted voices, started to rise again. They were closer now, curling around him, speaking in a language of grief. Mark grabbed Claire's arm, feeling the desperation in her grip. He pulled her forward, but what lay ahead now unnerved him more than the darkness behind. Before him stood the remnants of the house, a skeletal structure wrapped in vine and rot, its windows dark, like hollow eyes staring into the abyss. A sudden chill clawed at his neck as he stepped towards it, feeling drawn in by something twisted and bizarre. "Mark, we shouldn't go there." Claire's voice cracked with fear. "Where else can we go?" Deep down, he knew, the house was both their refuge and a trap. But what choice did they have? They edged closer, every step heavy, the floorboards creaking under the weight of their terror. As they entered, a gust of stale air hit them, filled with a rancid smell. Mark hesitated, suddenly questioning everything. The door behind them slammed shut with a resounding thud, trapping them inside. In that moment, the whispers turned into a shrill laughter, a cacophony of despair reverberating off the walls. The shadows inside the house shifted, merging with the floor and ceiling, and Mark's pulse raced as the laughter crescendoed into screams. "Mark!" Claire screamed, pulling away from him, terror plastered across her face. The shadows moved towards her, hungry and wild. "No!" Panic surged through him like a primal force. He lunged, grasping at thin air as the darkness swallowed Claire whole, leaving him standing in the spreading blackness. His heart raced as he turned to race back towards the door, but it was sealed tight, the wood pulsing like a living thing. The laughter morphed back into the haunting whispers, mocking him now. What had they awakened? And at what cost? Desperation clawed at him as he banged on the door. Would he be next to join the darkness, or could he find a way out before it claimed him too? As shadows threatened to consume him next, he heard the whispers coalesce into a single phrase again and again, echoing in the marrow of his bones, "Join us, join us." Could he escape this nightmare, or was it too late for salvation? The shadows surged, a dark tide threatening to pull Mark under. He stumbled backwards, heart pounding as the chill seeped into his bones. The room felt alive, like it was breathing, and every inhale was tainted with Claire's screams that faded into the rafters. "Claire!" he yelled again, the word tearing from his throat, breaking against the walls like glass. There was no answer, only the soft susurrus of whispers that seemed to giggle at his desperation. Panic clawed at the edges of his sanity. He needed to hold on to hope, but it slipped through his fingers like sand. The air grew thick, drawing tight around him, a claustrophobic weight that dragged him deeper into the suffocating darkness. He pressed forward, feeling the walls with frantic hands, searching for an exit, the floorboards creaking in mockery beneath him. The whispers grew louder, teasing him with fragments of words that twisted like vines in his mind. Join us, they sang, a seductive harmony that made his skin crawl. Mark's head spun. What if they were right? What if Claire was gone for good, lost to whatever malignant force trapped them here? The thought gnawed at his insides, and he felt his own resolve crumbling. Stumbling to his left, he caught sight of something glimmering in the shadows, a small window, framed in dirt and rotting wood. It wasn't much, but it promised a glimpse of freedom. With renewed determination, Mark rushed towards it, clawing at the fragile glass, jagged edges reflecting his panic-stricken features. But the window was stuck, a cruel tease as he pushed and pulled, panic turning his breathing into ragged gasps. He could feel the presence behind him, slithering through the air, wrapping around him like a cold blanket. The shadows cackled as he fought, mocking his struggle, spurring him into a frenzy. "Let me out!" he howled, smashing his palm against the glass. At that moment, a different sound broke through the whispers, a soft thud, as if something had fallen. Hopes rising, Mark turned. "Claire?" he called out, searching the darkness, his heart split between fear and desperate hope. The sound came again, closer this time, echoing in the empty room. It was the sound of something dragging across the floor, scraping against the wood. He took a step back, body taut as he turned slowly, eyes darting to where the sound originated. A ghostly figure emerged from the corner of the dim space, limbs bent at unnatural angles, moving in a way that sent bow rising in his throat. It glided closer, face obscured, but Mark could see the outline of familiar hair, Claire's hair, the way it fell over her face when she was anxious. Mark, the voice was broken, a haunting echo of the girl he loved. "Help me!" A pit opened in his stomach. The darkness was feeding on her. "What did they do to you?" he gasped, stepping forward instinctively. The whispers morphed into a frenzied chorus, growing louder, demanding his attention. "Don't come any closer," he heard himself shout. But he couldn't stop. He needed to save her. He would not lose Claire too. As he reached for her, she fell, suddenly crumpling to the floor, a marionette cut from its strings. Mark's heart stuttered as he rushed to her side, dropping to his knees. Her gaze was distant, void of the fear and fight from moments before. "Claire! Please look at me!" He shook her gently, the once vibrant spark dimming in her eyes. The shadows whispered feverishly now, swirling around them as if feeding off his mounting dread. Mark's breath quickened, panic closing in. Then he felt it, the cold touch of fingers weaving through the hair on his neck. Was it the dead or something worse? Join us, they echoed, now surrounding him, and as he looked into Claire's vacant eyes, a chill deepened within him. With a final surge of strength, he screamed, "No!" The sound shattered the air, and for a moment, everything fell silent. But in the stillness, he realized he stood on the edge, caught between reality and the gaping maw of darkness waiting to engulf him. Was he destined to join them? Or could he break free before the shadows dragged him in? He knew he had to act. In that moment, every instinct screamed for survival. With trembling hands, he reached for Claire, determination igniting within him. But as he pulled her closer, the shadows coiled tighter, readying to strike once more. Mark, a chilling voice echoed softly, "Different now, it's too late." The words sent ice through his veins, and he realized, as the room twisted again, he might have awakened something even darker than he could fathom. Could he save Claire before they both vanished into the void? Or was the darkness ready to claim him? Mark's heart thundered in his chest as he struggled to break through the silence. The words "it's too late" echoed ominously, filling the air with despair. He cradled Claire's limp form, his mind racing. What had happened to her? The shadows coiled tighter, whispering secrets he didn't want to hear. Each echo sent chills creeping up his spine as if the walls were closing in, sealing his fate. "Get away from her!" he shouted into the abyss, voice cracking, desperate for both Claire's attention and a way out. He had to think. He couldn't allow the creeping darkness to drown him, to consume them both. He glanced down at Claire. Her features looked hollow, eyes lost in a fog of confusion and terror. "Claire, please, you have to fight. Come back to me." Tears stung his eyes as he shook her gently. The shadows twitched around them, mocking his efforts, whispering even louder now. "Join us," they hissed. Forever Mark felt bow rising as he fought off the encroaching panic. He pulled her closer, hoping that warmth could ignite some spark of awareness within her. He could see the anguish on her face as if she were caught in a nightmare of unspeakable horrors. "Please, I won't give up on you. Just come back." Suddenly, a cold breeze blew past him, swirling around the both of them. The air felt charged, alive, as pale hands crept from the darkness, creeping towards him like slow serpents, fingers reaching out to snatch his very soul. With a surge of defiance, he pulled Claire closer to him, forming an impenetrable barrier against the smothering shadows. And then, amid the chaos, he caught her eyes flickering just a glimmer of recognition as they mirrored his fear. "Mark?" she whispered, voice barely above a breath. "Yes." "Claire! You're with me," he urged, his heart bursting with renewed hope. He squeezed her hand tightly, willing life back into her. "We need to escape this place." But just as the light returned to her eyes, it dimmed again. The whispers morphed into a screeching cacophony, shaking the very foundation of the room. The shadows lashed out, reaching desperately for her. "No!" he shouted. Drawing from a well of courage he didn't know he possessed, he surged to his feet, pulling Claire with him. "We have to go now." Mark stumbled back toward the window, tearing at the glass with frantic hands, pushing against the suffocating darkness that clawed at his skin. He could feel the claws tugging at the hem of his shirt, sharp and insistent, dragging him back toward oblivion. But something deep within him ignited, whether it was love, desperation, or survival instinct, he didn't know. He pressed his body against the window, determined to break free. The glass cracked under the strain, small shards raining down like glimmering stars of hope. And then an explosion of light filled the room. The shadows shrieked, retreating like the tide before a tsunami, drawn back by the brilliance of that blinding glow. Mark squinted through the chaos, clutching Claire to his chest, her life now radiating through him. "Hold on to me!" he yelled, and they surged together toward the now open gap, the warmth of the light consuming the frigid dread. But just as they began to slip through, A hand shot out from the dark cold fingers wrapping around Mark's ankle, pulling him back with a ferocious strength. "Join us forever!" The voice spat, echoing louder than ever, rippling through the space like 1,000 chains rattling in the depths of hell. "No!" Mark screamed, straining against the grip, his heart hammering as he battled against the unseen force. In that moment, everything hung in the balance. Claire's frightened gaze met his just as she whispered, "Mark, don't leave me!" As he struggled, the shadows clutched tighter, ready to drag him down into the darkness. Just when he thought all hope was lost, he felt something shift within Claire, a spark igniting. The light around her intensified, expanding, pushing against the darkness until the shadows screamed and recoiled, releasing their grasp. "Claire!" "Yes, yes!" Mark shouted as he pulled with every ounce of strength. Together, they tumbled through the window, the dark world behind them dissolving in blinding light. But as they landed on the ground, gasping and shaking, they could hear the faint whispers still curling through the air. "We will find you, you cannot escape." Mark looked down at Claire, breathless. "Are you okay?" Her eyes reflected fear and uncertainty. "I think so. But where are we?" His instincts roared with urgency, glancing around. The dim forest was thick with fog, oppressive in its stillness. In the distance, the whispers began to rise again, more insistent, more hungry. "Let us go," he urged, pulling her to her feet, his grip tight. They had escaped one darkness, but a more sinister shadow loomed ahead. Could they truly leave the nightmare behind? Or had they just traded one hell for another? The landscape around them felt alive, teeming with the kind of malevolence that chilled Mark to his core. Every rustle in the leaves sent a surge of anxiety through his veins. He scanned the trees, their skeletal branches clawing at the sky, and felt their eyes lurking, watching. Claire's voice trembled, laced with fear. "We shouldn't be here." "I know," he replied, forcing the words out through dry lips. "But we have to keep moving." Twisting, he pulled her deeper into the dense thicket. The whispers grew louder, circling around them like a swarm of bees, each buzz carrying the promise of something sinister. They pushed through the fog, feeling it clutch at their clothing, dragging them back into the twisted shadows. Then, the ground shifted beneath them, the ancient forest floor seemingly alive with malice. Roots snagged at their ankles, attempting to trip them as they hurried along. Mark couldn't shake the feeling they were being hunted. "Do you hear that?" Claire stopped suddenly, eyes wide as she focused on the rhythmic thumping in the distance. A pulse. It wasn't just the sound of their hearts anymore. It echoed through the trees, reverberating against the damp earth, shaking the very air around them. "Yeah, I hear it." He stepped closer to her, fear clawing at his throat. "Let us keep moving." As they turned, the ground below them cracked sharply, followed by a jagged tearing noise. Mark's heart dropped as he glanced back. The forest had shifted. A large dark shape rose in shadow, like an unholy monument erupting from the earth. It loomed over them, twisting and writhing in the fog, pushing against their last remaining thread of hope. "Run!" he yelled, yanking Claire's hand as he bolted forward. They raced through the obscured path, each step feeling like wading through quicksand. The soft ground swallowed their feet, slowing them, and the thumping grew nearer, ominous and unrelenting. Suddenly, Claire stumbled and fell hard to the ground, gasping as she grasped her ankle. "Claire!" He turned, heart racing. "Get up!" Clutching her leg, she grimaced. I can't move." Panic surged through Mark's body. The noises crescendoed, and he felt the approaching dread clawing up his back. "Stay down!" He knelt beside her, eyes darting around the dense fog as he helped her to sit against a gnarled tree. "Can you put any weight on it?" She tried, but pain contorted her face. "I don't think so. Please, you have to go. You have to save yourself." His head spun, helplessness clawing at him. "No way! I'm not leaving you!" He scanned the shadows, the pounding sound drawing ever closer with each breath. The dark shape loomed ominously in the haze. "Mark, you have to!" Claire gasped, her eyes widening in terror, locked on something behind him. He turned slowly, dread crawling under his skin. The darkness shifted, forming a figure tall, distorted, gathering itself from the shadows. It wore a twisted face, mouth stretched wide in a grin filled with malice. The whispers coalesced, pulling around the figure like a dark cloak. "Join us," it hissed, a voice that felt like ice slicing through the air. "Embrace the shadows forever." Mark felt the chill wrap around him like a vice. Adrenaline surged as he pushed down his fear. "Get away from her!" he yelled, his voice cracking under the weight of desperation. Mark Claire's voice was barely a whisper, trembling with dread. "What do we do?" He was out of ideas, trapped between her pain and the encroaching dark. The figure took a step forward, and the world around him began to shift. "Run!" The command escaped him before he even thought to doubt. If they were to survive, they had to take the chance. Heart pounding, he reached for Claire, steadying her. They took off, the ground feeling more unstable, thorns clawing at their legs as they sprinted. The figure howled, a sound of fury and hunger that resonated through the forest, sending shards of terror through him. "You cannot escape me!" Mark gritted his teeth, pulling Claire with all his strength as they raced through the trees. But the terrain twisted underfoot. All around them, shadows roared, the darkness rippling as though reality itself bent in on itself. Then, out of the chaos, a flicker of light broke through the fog, a small opening ahead, a possible way out. "Look! This way!" Mark shouted, determination fueling him. With Claire limping alongside, he pushed toward the light only to feel the shadows clawing at his back, a vengeful grip threatening to pull him back into the abyss. In that heartbeat, he realized their escape was anything but certain. They were still being hunted. And whatever they ran from was far from finished. As they closed in on the light, the whispers howled. "You cannot escape!" The darkness roared behind them, electrified with rage, and Mark felt time stretching, breath held in a painful pause. What lay ahead? Would they break free into daylight, or would they plunge deeper into the void from which there was no return? "Claire, hold on!" he cried, darting toward the light that promised salvation, or perhaps even more terror waiting just beyond the glow. What awaited them, he dared not guess. As Mark and Claire stumbled through the glowing portal of light, the sensation of heat enveloped them like a warm embrace, a stark contrast to the freezing grip of darkness that had been pursuing them. They fell onto a grassy knoll, panting, struggling to comprehend the shift in their surroundings. The whispers faded into soft echoes as they lay panting on the ground, trying to peel themselves away from the cycle of panic they had just endured. Bright sunlight streamed through the treetops, casting playful shadows on the ground so welcoming, so ordinary. "Are we safe?" Claire asked, her voice trembling as she slowly sat up, scanning their new environment. The green foliage swayed gently, a stark reminder of life outside that dark grip. "This feels too good to be real." Mark looked around at the vibrant colors, greens, yellows, and soft blues filling their vision, and he felt a weight lift off his chest. "Maybe we are." Hope surged through him, aided by the sun's warmth. They had escaped the twisted dark, but could it really be over? Before he could voice that question, a shadow cast itself over them. Both of them froze, eyes trained on the line of trees that framed the edge of the forest where they had just emerged. Moments passed, feeling like hours, but nothing manifested from the shadows. It was eerily quiet, almost oppressive. "Mark?" Claire's voice wobbled like a child's. "What if it just waits? What if we're not done yet?" Mark's heart sank. Had they truly escaped? The terror of their experience coiled within him like a live wire. "I don't know. But we have to move. We have to get as far away from there as possible." They scrambled to their feet, searching for a path to distance themselves from the memories of darkness. He grabbed Claire's hand tightly, their fingers intertwined, a reminder that they were still together, still fighting. As they walked, the whispering winds began to hum a tune, a gentle song carried on the breeze. The sound felt soothing, yet it carried an undercurrent that pricked at their minds, whispering familiar phrases, "Join us," echoing softly as if the forest was aware of their struggle. "Don't think about it," Mark urged, tightening his grip on Claire's hand. "Just focus on the light ahead." They stumbled through a flower-laden meadow that stretched far and wide, each vibrant blossom seemingly alive, celebrating their escape. Yet the haunting whispers lingered like ghosts at the back of their minds. Suddenly, Mark snapped to attention, cold dread washing over him. "We can't trust this place. We don't know what it is." Claire's face hardened, determination mingling with her fear. "Then let us keep moving. I want to go back there." But the moment they stepped off the delicate blanket of flowers, the ground cracked beneath them like ice, and the sweet sounds of the meadow faded into a cacophony of grating noise. The vibrant colors dulled into shades of gray, and the flowers wilted into lifeless husks. "Mark!" Claire screamed as they sank into a chasm that opened beneath them, dark and suffocating. They plummeted, spiraling into a world devoid of light, into an echoing abyss that pulsed with an unknown terror. Mark fought against gravity, instinctively grasping onto Claire as they fell. "Hold on!" The sensation of falling twisted into something far worse. Shadows coalesced around them, whispering promises of despair. Without warning, a final gust of wind grabbed them, flinging them down into a vast chamber filled with the sinister glow of flickering shadows. They landed hard, and the shock rattled through them. Mark pushed himself up, adrenaline coursing through him. "Get up, Claire!" he shouted, frantically looking for any sign of escape. A haunting laughter rippled through the chamber, echoing against the walls. The shadows danced, shifting and blinking, revealing faces twisted with anguish, remnants of those who had fallen before. "Welcome back," they sneered, a chorus of mockery that set Mark's heart racing. "Get away from us!" he yelled, pulling Claire closer. Their focus turned to a flickering light in the distance, a beacon of hope amidst the nightmare. The shadows lunged, tentacles reaching for them, whispering their names in shrill tones. Join us, forever." Mark dragged Claire toward the light, their breaths ragged as he fought against the tide of encroaching darkness. With every ounce of determination, Mark shouted, "We don't belong to you!" They surged forward, the light growing ever closer, infusing strength into their weary bodies. As they reached the light, it exploded around them, washing over their skin, lifting them up and out of the shadows. The world shifted and swirled, liberating them from the dark grips of despair. They emerged into a world bathed in sunlight, no longer trapped in the clutches of the abyss. They lay on green grass, the warm breeze caressing their faces, the cacophony replaced by the jubilant sounds of children playing nearby. "We made it," Claire breathed, her eyes wild with relief. Mark nodded, still catching his breath. The dark feast they had escaped haunted his mind, whispering within, reminding him of the origin of their terror. But for how long? Claire grasped his hand tighter, her resolve washing over him like a healing balm. "We'll face it together, won't we?" "Always," he promised, looking out toward the horizon, a fractured world of darkness still looming beyond the edge of sunlight. And as they took a step away from the echoes of their past, both knew they would remain vigilant, ready to face whatever shadows dared to follow. For every shadow that lurked in their memories also meant they belonged together. Stronger than the darkness, the story can be made of many beginnings, and edges not all of them end when we think they do. If you loved this spine-chilling chapter and want to unravel more amazing stories, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss a beat of the next exclusive tales we're crafting just for you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. We want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What did you think about Mark and Claire's journey? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans, this is your moment to shine. Let us keep this amazing community thriving together.